6-5 talks about solving square roots and other radical equations. Your objective is to learn how to solve for x if x is under a square root or if x is by a square root. There are a couple of important things today. Your main idea is this: isolate the radical or the rational exponent term. The first thing I want you to remember is that in order to get rid of a square root, you would need to square both sides. It's the opposite. In order to get rid of a cube root, you would need to cube both sides. When squaring a binomial, make sure you write it twice so you don't miss anything. For example, if you have x plus 4 to the quantity squared, make sure that you make that x plus 4 times x plus 4 so you don't mess anything up. Number 4, when solving for an x squared problem, you might need to factor or use the quadratic formula. Now, if you don't want to use the quadratic formula and you don't want to factor, that just means you'll have to complete your square. The following problems I would consider the easier problems of today. We're going to, ready, step 1, isolate the radical. So that means I need to move this 3 to the other side. So I will get the square root of 2x minus 3 equals, what's 8 minus 3? 5, because I did 8 minus 3. Step 2, now that it's isolated, step 2, square both sides. Why would I square both sides? To get rid of the square root. Alright, so I'm going to do a square here around 2x minus 3. I'm going to put squared around my 5. Now squaring this is going to give you 2x minus 3. Squaring 5 is going to give you 25. Now let's solve for x. Okay, that would be step 3. So add 3, so 2x equals 28. Divide by 2, x equals 14. If you want to see if you did it correctly, do a check. Okay, plug in 14. Alright, so if you want to check, you would do 3 plus the square root of 2 times 14 minus 3 equal 8. Well, that's really 3 plus the square root of 25 equal 8, which is really 3 plus 5, which equals 8. Okay, the next one's a little bit more difficult. It's in exponential forms. I will call this a level 2. Okay, step 1, isolate the parentheses that has the 2/3 power. So that means I'm going to divide by 3. So that will give me x plus 1 to the quantity to the 2/3 power, and that's going to equal 4 because you divide by 3. Alright, step 2, rewrite the parentheses to the 2/3 as a root. Alright, so that's going to mean that I'm going to have the cube root of x plus 1 squared, and that's because I had the 3 on the bottom and the 2 on the top. And that will equal 4. Now step 3 This time, to get rid of the cube root, I need to cube both sides. Alright, now if I cube, ready? I've got this quantity, x plus 1 squared. If I cube that, I need to cube the other side too. What's going to happen here is that you're going to get x plus 1 quantity squared equal to 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. Okay, now I'm going to go up here now because I'm running out of room. I'm going to move over. You have learned this, whether you remember it or not. I'm going to take the square root of this. Ready? If I take the square root of x plus 1, that turns into x plus 1 equals the square root. Ready? Let's write that you're taking the square root now. Square root of 64 is plus and minus 8. If you don't put that plus and minus on there, you're only going to have half the answer. So that's really x plus 1 equals 8, and x plus 1 equals negative 8. Subtract 1, x equals 7. Subtract 1, x equals negative 9. You should do a quick check, and you will notice that both of these plug in. On the back. This time you have the fifth root. Okay, step 1, divide by 3. So that's going to give you the fifth root of x plus 1 cubed plus 1 equals 25. Now step 1, instead of dividing by 3, I should have wrote, what should you get rid of first? Put that 3 back on there, okay? What should you get rid of first? You should minus 1. Minus 1 from this thing. You ready? So it's going to give me the cube root, or 3 times the fifth root of x plus 1 cubed equals 24, because I do minus 1. And now I divide by 3. So I get the fifth root of x plus 1, the quantity cubed, equals 8, because I divided by 3. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take each side to the power of 5. Write that down. Take each side to the power of 5. Alright, so that's going to give me x plus 1 cubed equals 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. Okay, so 8 to the 5th power. 32768. Okay, now you see how this is cubed? I'm going to go up here. And so what we've got 1, 2, 3, step 4. Okay, to get x out of this cube, okay, make a note here. Make a note. To get x out, take cube root. So I'm going to do the cube root of x plus 1 cubed. That's going to get rid of the cube. And that's going to equal the cube root of 32768. Okay, and that's going to give me x plus 1 equals cube root of 32768, 32. Subtract 1, x is 31. We got it. First step, I'm going to divide by 2. That'll give me the parentheses by themselves. When I divide 8 by 2, I get a 4. Step 2 is to rewrite. So that's the cube root of x plus 3 squared. Step 3, cube both sides. Okay, that's going to get rid of this cube root here. So you get x plus 3 quantity squared equals 4 cubed, 64. And the last thing is you got to get rid of that square, so step 4, square root both sides. Okay, and that gets rid of the square. So by taking the square root and put that on the next step so it doesn't get confusing. Okay, so I'll do the square root of x plus 3 squared equals the square root of 64. And that's going to be x plus 3 equals plus or minus 8. Separate that. So you get x plus 3 equals 8, and x plus 3 equals negative 8. Subtract 3. X equals 5. Subtract 3. X equals negative 11. Both of those will plug in. You should always take a double check and make sure. Problem 3. For meteor crater in Arizona, the formula d equals 2 times the cube root of the volume over 0.3 relates the diameter of the rim to the volume in cubic meters. What is the volume of this meteor crater? All values are approximate. So we have this crater that was made, and you have the entire circle, and they're telling us that the diameter of your circle is 1.2 kilometers. But this problem is in meters, so we have to convert by multiplying that by 1,000, so we can convert it to meters. Multiply that to meters, so times 1,000 equals 1,200 meters. That's the first step. We need to figure out what the volume is of this particular problem. So let's write our formula down. And now let's plug in the d that we have. Okay. Moving over, I'm going to divide by 2. So I get 600 equals the cube root of volume divided by 0.3. Now I have to get rid of the cube root, so I'm going to cube both sides. Now when you cube 600, you're going to get 216 with 6 zeros. And over here, you're just going to get v over 0.3. Okay, and that came from cubing both sides. The next thing I'm going to do, follow it up. I'm going to multiply both sides by 0.3. Okay. Multiplying 216 million by 0.3 will give us 648. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So 64,800,000 meters cubed for the volume.